Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. My name is Chet, and I am your host. I'm back after a couple weeks off. I didn't mean to take 2 weeks off, but I took 1 week off, and then that turned into 2 weeks. I am desperately painting away on a solo show called Zombie Death Bots that I'm doing at Copper Gallery in October. You can see a piece right here if you're watching on YouTube behind me. And you remember this show? You remember I was talking about this? I'm sure I was talking about this on the podcast. How I'm going to start early. I'm going to start 6 months early, 7 months early, 8 months early. Well, it's now 2 months away, and I have to paint these damn things. But the thing is, I have a new technique. I have been working on them. I started like 3 months before the show, and that's just because that's what happens every time. Because I always have to hustle for money. And it just gets pushed back and pushed back. So here I am again. um, so anyway, I need some extra time to paint for the show. And be getting into the NFT space and getting back into digital really helped me to discover this new technique that I got for setting up my comps in Photoshop and working out all the bugs in Photoshop and then painting studies and then painting the paintings. And it works really, really well. And so I'm kind of excited that that came out of this. So sure, I've only got 2 months, but with this new technique I got where everything's laid out, everything is 100% worked out in Photoshop. It's really the paintings go a lot faster. So and it's not as many paintings as I normally do. It's like 9 paintings, not a bunch of big ones either. So anyway, that's why I had to take 2 weeks off. And I'm good for next week. The week after that, I'm not too sure. I might have to take another week off. We'll see how it goes. Today we have Gabe Leonard, friend of the show, Gabe Leonard. He went to an NFT conference, and I want to ask him about that. We had a really good discussion about that, and interesting to hear about. It's NFTs are slowly becoming mainstream. The market's terrible right now, so I haven't been really doing anything in it. Mostly because I'm working on my show, but also because the market's horrible because the economy's horrible. But it's still valid. And if you're part of the art world, it's something you got to know about, even if you're not into it, because it's coming into the art world more and more. Big auction houses and fine art blue chip galleries are getting involved, and so it's here to stay, I think. Anyway, had a great discussion. We don't just talk about NFTs. We talk about a lot of just regular art stuff and career stuff. It's always fun talking to Gabe. So that's coming up. Our sponsor is Skull Shoppe, Skull Shoppe, SKULSHOPPE. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this cool kid skull I have. I love these skulls. All my skull reference. If you see a painting and it's got skull reference, it's a Skull Shoppe skull. If you join at the $5 and above level, they are giving away a skull a month. And I still haven't gotten hold of Jennifer Steck. You have a skull waiting, Jennifer. If you want it, your name was drawn. I guess if you don't get in touch, maybe we should do another drawing. But yeah, let's see. Since I took 2 weeks off, we have to figure it out because I know a few people raised their pledges on Patreon to the $5 level. I'm sure it was to try and win a skull. So this July's will likely go deep into August before we do the drawing, I think. Anyway, if you want to join the Dark Art Society Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Dark Art Society. You can join for as little as $1 a month. We have different levels of tiers, and get your name read on the show like I'm about to do. And I had quite a few new subscribers. I was surprised. So yeah, if you want to, and again, if you join at the $5 and above level, you get entered into this little contest to win a skull. And the skulls are awesome. They look totally real. I'm looking at it right now up close. They look absolutely. I've got a real skull over here. I've got a Skull Shoppe skull right here, and you literally can't tell the difference. They're really amazing. They're cast from real skulls. Anyway, new Patreon subscribers. Okay. I need glasses so bad. Sebastian Barantes. Thank you. Luke Kraft. Thank you. Oh, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Summer Rain. Thank you, Summer. Rich Page. Ian Loam. And Phil Worth. Thank you all for supporting the podcast. This is how it happens. This is how it gets done. It's from your contributions. And thank you for doing that, because now everybody can listen to it for free because of you all supporting it financially. What else is going on? I know something's been going on. I've been getting into this guy, Mitch Horowitz, lately. Really cool stuff. I won't say anything beyond that, but really great occult manifestation type guy with some really great insights into this whole thing. So if you're into that sort of thing, he's really great, really amazing. And let's see. That's it. Let's get on with the Gabe Leonard interview. It's not a super long one. It's only just a little over an hour because I got to get back to painting, but I didn't want to leave you hanging for another week. So, all right, here we go with Gabe Leonard. I hope you enjoy it. What's up, Gabe?
What's up, Chet?
What are you eating there?
Gum.
Always good to be chewing gum on a podcast interview.
Yeah, fine. Take it out. No, just for you. I was sitting on my desk.
I was giving you shit.
I
was giving you shit. You could chew gum on my podcast any day.
Oh, wow. Thanks, man.
Friend of the show, Gabe Leonard. That's your title, friend of the show.
As long as he's not chewing gum.
So how are you?
I didn't bring enough for everybody. That's the problem.
Yeah. How's it going?
Going good. I'm a little fried and tired, and like I need a vacation, I think, at some point.
Yeah. I don't think I've had a vacation in 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I went camping in January, and that was like the only true vacation I've had in a while.
Yeah.
I go do stuff, but it's like everything I do involves me drawing or working or thinking about my business, and I need a mental break.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like a physical break. It's like I'm always in the studio. I'm sitting here like I'm just, but then I don't know what I want to, what else I want to do. So
yeah, I know how it is, man. It's like it's such a grind.
It's so tough,
a grind.
So tough.
It's just like, my theory is always you can't win because it doesn't matter. No matter what situation you get in, there's going to be all these things you don't want to deal with. But I'm not complaining though, because I know people got way worse than I do. That's for
sure. Oh yeah. You're talking about the shit sandwich theory.
Yeah. Everybody's got a shit sandwich.
Yep. And mine's all right. No, it's chewy right now.
You're managing to get it down.
No, that's the problem. It's not going down. It's just like really chewy, you know.
That's disgusting. So anyway, well, you went for people who don't know, everybody knows Gabe. Everybody on the who listens to the show knows Gabe. He's one of the great artists of our times here. And he it's true. And you know, we started doing NFTs around the same time. We kind of got into it at the same time, and now we're experiencing the bear market at the same time. And
Yeah.
so we've kind of been going on this journey together, that the ups and downs. And you just went to an event, a 2-day
Yeah.
event all about NFTs. And I know it was you got some insight from it, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about that.
Yeah, I just got back from a Future Shape 360 event put on by Meta Noise,
Yeah,
and
what was it? It was like a bit. It was huge, right?
well, it was a conference. So I haven't been to a lot of NFT events. I've been to a couple of parties put on by different projects and stuff. But from what I understand, like the bigger ones, like the NFT in NYC or NFTLA, there's so much going on and it's so spread out that it's hard to like really absorb it. It's just too much.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And there's lots of varying quality of presentations and all that stuff. So this was designed as a way to have an event where the panel discussions and thought leaders were kind of all giving presentations in the same location. It was easier to manage if you're a participant of the event. So, and I think it was really focusing on people that are trying to build things, and they incorporated a whole bunch of wide variety of operators in the NFT space, from individual artists and fine artists and digital artists to like brand managers and people trying to help big corporate brands get into the NFT space, and people that are doing projects like developers and so it's a wide range of things. And so you got to experience and meet people in person in a way that you just can't do on Twitter or other social media.
Right. So let me ask you this, because for people who aren't in the NFT space right now, there's a huge bear market. The market's terrible. Like it's bad. It's bad. It's like stuff isn't really selling, and people are getting bummed. And the people that kind of came in right before the bear market, like, are leaving, and it's kind of like it's just taken this huge downturn. Um, uh, and I've for me, it's always been an extra. It's like one more branch on the tree of an art career. It's to
Yeah.
use like Prince or whatever. So I'm not so tied to it, but I'm also not as just having been in it for this amount of time, for so long, for a whole 6 months. Um, uh, I've seen the side that people don't like about it, which is like the crypto bros and the assholes and the scammers, and there's so much of
Yeah.
that. So it's I just want to clarify, I'm still really excited about the technology and the potential that it could be used with artwork. Totally into it still, but I've come down to earth a little bit more, because I've seen all the stuff that I've heard people complain about, and it's really disgusting. It's really ugly. It's like some of the people in there are just like, you would never want to have any kind of connection with them, because it's like, oh man, this is like worse than high school. But
Well, that's true in like the real world business of art too. And
but that's more on the, I think, on the level of the
it's
higher
super
level galleries.
concentrated. It's super concentrated in NFT stuff right now.
Hmm.
So like, it's really attracting people that are savvy business people that see the opportunity for money to be made. Like anytime you are able to create ownership of something new, I think there's going to be people coming into that area to try
Hmm.
to sell it to you or to try to buy it and own it and then resell it. So there's just a lot of people, I think, trying to figure out what to do with
You're
this
right.
technology and how to use it. So like if you view NFTs as a tool rather than a thing to sell, like
A thing in
the,
and of
the
itself.
yeah, the problem that it addressed for digital artists was it now allows them to sell their digital art with a proof of ownership, right? So it
Right.
basically you're creating uh, for lack of a better word, encrypted token that is recognizable and unique, and you're able to take your art and make it unique by putting like a serial number or a stamp on it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you could take a photograph of that and, you can copy and paste it somewhere. But, you could take a photograph of my painting on a wall and put it online too. So it doesn't stop people from doing that sort of thing.
Right.
Um,
I'm
so it's what I was getting at is it gives digital artists who are people that are just solely digital a way to monetize their art without having to like work for game companies or work for studios or other people that are using digital art for bigger projects. That's
right.
kind of where I see the initial problem solving that it has.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I wanted to start off with one thing because I talked to you for a few minutes earlier about this convention or whatever conference, and I was wondering what the vibe was at the place since since the market's so bad right now. Was there like were people still like hyped or were people
Yeah,
like
people are
bumming?
excited. I mean, the people that are going to an event like this are
That's
people
true.
that are in it for reasons outside of the money,
Right.
and not everybody is like people. You say call it. We always use. It's kind of a weird thing. We are always using like banking terms for this business.
Mm-hmm.
But so uh, the people that are in it, not everybody is not making money. There's people still selling stuff and still
Right.
happening. So it's there's a few types of people that I see, in an event like this. One, it's like the just a regular artist, like digital artist or traditional artist, whatever. That they make art, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're not trying to like you know solve any other problem other than trying to sustain themselves with their art
Right.
and put their art out into the world, right? Then there are business people who are looking for ways to do startup businesses, and I there's a couple of things they're doing. One of it seems like sometimes it seems like they're coming in with a logo and then trying to figure out a business around it,
Right.
and like there's a lot of people just trying to figure out what can they do with creating uh, a user base and it's almost like they're trying to replace traditional social media marketing and social media platforms
Mm-hmm.
with the ability to directly connect and sort of own your audience, maybe like instead of like having a Facebook or an Instagram where you're trying to get people to go to your website and sign up for an email address where you then are sending them emails. They're trying to create things that get people connected together in smaller groups and more
Mm-hmm.
private groups and organizations, and so they're doing things, like clothing companies and record, musicians. I saw a lot of people really addressing the music industry and some of it on the film industry, where you have lots of complicated intellectual property entanglements with lots of people involved in a project. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're producing music and records, you have writers, different musicians, producers. Then you have the labels and stuff that inject a lot of money so you can produce that stuff. And so they're really looking at the technology of blockchain and NFTs as a way of turning that distribution model upside down.
Right.
So, like, they'll make music and then they can't send it out to their fans or do anything with it because the labels own the music, the rights to it, and the ability to distribute it. And if they don't see a way to make money, or if they start getting greedy and demand too much money, they can kill projects. They can kill your connection with your collectors and your audience. And so there's sort of a barrier, but without them, you are just a guy in your basement making your music, and with
Right.
them, you get on a stage, but then you can't then in the background connect with your audience, send them music, drop a music, let them use your music for things, all that kind of stuff. So this is allowing for that. for example, for music, there was a guy talking about how he created a beat, he put it on his Discord, and anybody who bought the NFT could use that beat, make something to go with it.
Hmm.
But they would have to go in the Discord and submit it, and it got voted on, and the best ones would get passed on. And so they're using us to build and create things in more of a collaborative way
Yeah,
between artists.
that to me, that's like the exciting and interesting thing about this technology is stuff like that. It's like it's not when some idiot just makes like a different version of an ape
Yeah,
or a different version of a PFP project that's like, oh, we got to do it like an ape because that made a lot of money. It's like that is like the worst shit ever. That's like, that's like working in the movie business where they don't allow real inspiration and creativity because it's all based on what has sold in the past. The
yeah,
stuff that's yeah,
that's the business minded people coming in and seeing what's
right,
already working. They're just trying
right.
to repeat it,
But the
do it
thing
again.
about
Yeah,
but the thing about any big successful project is that generally, the ones that come kind of up from nowhere are they don't, they are. I don't want to say that Bored Apes are inspired, but it's like projects like that usually are just like, hey, let's do this cool thing. I guess the crypto punks were the first thing to do that, where it was
yeah.
like this
So
generated piece of
those
artwork.
those early on projects, they got the people that are part of that and bought into that are really excited about it. I think the early on successes are probably going to remain that way just because they were the firstest with the
Right,
most,
right.
right?
Yeah, but it's like, I guess my point is I'm excited about seeing people use the technology for new things rather than, let's do something that's kind of like that thing that was successful. It's like,
Yeah.
ugh,
So if
I
you
just hate
come into
that.
the space and your objective is making as much money as possible, you're going to end up doing those sort of things because people will do what they think is going to make money,
Yeah.
and that doesn't necessarily breed a lot of creativity. It breeds repetition on what's already worked. Even if it doesn't work as good as like Board Ape Yacht Club, it works good enough to make them some money. But there's also a lot of, because this is new space uh, in business, in finance, and there's no regulation. It creates a lot of room for charlatans to come in,
Hmm.
hype men, performers and actors and people just full of hot air to come in and blow a bunch of smoke up your ass.
Yeah. There's plenty of
Um,
those.
yeah, so it's rife with a lot of that. There are really a number of really smart and creative people on in every aspect of the space, I think.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's when you start meeting people in person, it starts to become apparent who the people that are a lot of hot air and not a
Yeah.
lot of substance are, because
Yeah.
at some point you have to be able to like do more than just hype yourself or hype your project. You can't rely on the hype solely to carry it past the initial stages.
Yeah.
So like I can go back as an example in my career when I got into a bunch of galleries. I had a management team that was like doing a bunch of hype, and it was a lot of it was smoke and mirrors, and it was really frustrating for me. But the thing is if your work doesn't start selling, you have to deliver the artwork. It has to deliver whatever you're bringing to the market has to sustain itself. And if it can't do it on its own merits, eventually
Yeah.
the story and the hype and the mystique and all that stuff starts to sort of fade and dissipate away. So it might take time for that to happen, but I think you're going to see more and more of that happen as you know people start complaining about rug pulls, which is basically people starting a project, getting a bunch of money, and then just vanishing with the money.
Hmm.
Because there's nobody holding anybody to account and that kind of thing. We're all sort of policing ourselves. There was a lot of talk about anonymity in the space, especially from the women's panel. They were talking about, you know, people being able to track your assets and being able to follow you and see what you own and possibly hassle or harass you or judge you or treat you differently because they recognize who you are. So there's a case to be anonymous so you're not treated less than another group of people because you're a woman or you're a minority or you're some other thing that um, people are going to have a judgment about.
Hmm.
Then in that same panel, they're also talking about how they are leery about working with anonymous developers and people on their projects mainly
How
because
can you
they like,
trust them?
yeah, so if they, so that's the thing is like, they'll ask, well, why do you want to remain anonymous? And it's like, because if the project goes sideways, I don't want my name attached to it. And so they're one of their things is like, you don't want to get people on a project. You want to be developing something you want your name attached to.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's
Where's the
there's sort of,
incentive there to make sure the project's amazing?
well, I mean, there's a lot of people. There's reasons to remain anonymous. You don't want to be harassed or different things. Like for collectors and stuff, they don't want to be hassled by
Yeah.
people. They don't want to be tracked down and doxxed. But at some point, like if I'm doing business with someone and I can't tell who they are, I don't know their like I can't meet them or I can't know their name. Like, yeah, it's like I don't really want to do business with that person.
Yeah.
Like I've been doxxed my entire life. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
so have you.
Exactly. That's why it was weird to come into the space and see all these people under like pseudonyms
Pseudonyms.
and no way of kind of like looking them up beyond that. And I just have always taken the exact opposite approach with my careers. More like
Yeah.
I'm totally out there and it's just a different approach. But I mean, I understand that's the first thing I asked in a group thread of dark artists on Twitter about why is everyone so hung up on anonymity, and the first person to say something was a woman, female artist that said she doesn't want to get hassled by creepy dudes. It's like,
Yeah, and
okay,
that's a
that's a
real
good reason.
legitimate reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there are circumstances in which it's good to, there's a good argument to remain anonymous. But when you're working on a project and asking people for money, I think that's probably not the time to be doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
or when you're doing things which has lots of influence and impact on other people's lives, and you can't be held accountable because you're anonymous for what you do or say in a space. I
Right.
think that's something to think about too.
Yeah. So how was the I mean, how was it? How was the whole show? Did you
It,
come back feeling like good about things or
yeah,
inspired?
I was, it gave me a much broader sense of what's going on in crypto and NFT stuff, and I see that there's a lot of compelling uses for the technology. It was actually reaffirming in a lot of the things I've been talking about with like, um, we've talked about the sort of language around crypto and NFTs is too inaccessible and too confusing to people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of talk. So there's a lot of talk about like even stop using the word NFT. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so like I've been looking at ways to use this technology to create my certificates of authenticity for prints and originals,
Yeah, it's a
and
great idea.
basically replacing my paper certificates with digital certificates,
Yeah.
which would be used to prove that you purchased something, that you own that thing, and when it happened, that you got it from me, and then it could be used like for insurance purposes, so to speak. Like, say your
Mm-hmm.
house burned down, you would have a digital record on a global ledger that shows that they own this piece, and
Right.
they can verify with me if they need to. Like, so it's verifiable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's that, and it's there was another thing I was going to say, but now I can't remember.
What was it? No, there was another. Oh, you were talking about using the technology to like keep track of collectors and stuff as well.
To no to verify. So like when they're talking about building community, and one of the sort of frustrating things I ran into is like, it's like, oh, it's good that you're here, but everything you've done in the real world, forget that. Now you need to start it completely all over once again. Like,
Right,
it's like
right.
like you need to go build a Discord. You got to build your community. You got to give back to the community. And I'm like, what the hell's going? On? It's like, you know, and I have all this, I have knowledge about the art business and about being an artist. I have all these things I can contribute and help people with, but they don't give a shit. They like, what are you going to do for us now that you're here? Like nothing you did ever before matters. This is all completely new, and so that became frustrating. And I realized I already have a community. I have people who have collected my work,
Mm-hmm.
and so instead of like trying to sell NFTs to people in a space who are trying to speculate and then like they want to buy them from me cheap, so when mainstream comes in, they can turn around and flip it to my existing collectors. I decided I would mint NFTs on a more eco-friendly chain and then start giving them away to my present collectors. from the past 20 some years.
Mm.
And basically reaching out to people again and giving them something for free, which because they've already put money in my hand by buying my artwork. They helped me when I was super struggling and selling in the street. A lot of
Yeah.
these people,
Yeah, it's a great idea.
and then they have something that maybe they can try to sell, but it's like just like a more like a rewards program or just a
Right.
thank you. And plus it invites people to kind of become familiar with the technology and that sort of thing. They don't have to risk anything. All they have to do is download an app on their phone to have it. So I made it incredibly easy for people to get NFTs from me
Mm-hmm.
if they've already bought my work, for for example. So basically, I'm using it as a way of verifying my collector base. So like if you have one of these tokens, you are verified on the blockchain as being a collector of my work. So it's like a prosperity or like a historical archive or documentation. I've been viewing NFTs and blockchain as a way of archiving and documenting my work. I minted a sketchbook of mine, an entire sketchbook as a PDF
Yeah,
file.
that's so cool.
I'm thinking about doing that with a lot more sketchbooks, so people could, if they want to go through and look at my sketchbook ideas and where I was doing, like all the way from like 2000 up till now. I mean, I could go back to college and all that stuff too if I wanted.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's just
that
like an
that's
archive.
yeah, and that's that kind of innovative kind of um use that I'm talking about, creative ideas
Yeah.
using the blockchain in
Well,
a new way.
once I got my mind, what happened is I took the idea of making money with this, the money question. I took that out of the equation. So that if there was no money involved, what would I be doing with this? And that's what I kind of came to. I would be like using it to certify purchases of my physical art. I would be using it as a bundle to sell books. I would be using it to archive my work. Not necessarily like those sketchbooks. I don't have them listed for sale, and I don't anticipate anybody wanting to buy them. I don't even know if I want to sell them. I just want them to be out there so people can see them.
Right.
One of the things that happens when you start putting things on the current setup of the internet is that websites change and links change, and eventually images they just those files disappear. So what I'm looking to do is put my artwork as the file on a blockchain, which until the global network of computers goes down, I have it out there, and it'll outlive me if this thing, unless our entire world burns up in global warming or something. But if that's the case, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah. True.
so I'm looking at it as an archiving and documentation, and then proof of ownership and origin, all that kind of stuff, and basically using it for what you would normally use a ledger for, like an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
But this is and I use an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of inventory and all that stuff. But things happen to those, and they get corrupted. You have to go back and fix them, and
Right.
you can make mistakes with it just the same. So yeah, that's how I see this going, and I started thinking about like the box that artists are being put in NFT space. They're being there's like a scoreboard on all these platforms that you can sell NFTs, right? There's traded volume, like how much have you sold, how much of your artwork is traded in volume. There's floor price, like what's the entry point, how what's the cheapest you can buy the work at, and then how many collectors you have, or who's the collectors. And I started thinking about like, well, who does this benefit? It has the artist trying to maintain this scoreboard, and they're judging and valuing themselves about how much they have out there, and they're afraid to put more work out because what if it doesn't sell, and they have a bunch of unsold work, and then nobody's going to buy it. And so they're trapping themselves into this weird box, and I don't think any of that matters, to be honest.
Well,
I
yeah.
think
Well, that's kind of what you were saying too about how it felt like a lot of when you were talking earlier, a lot of people are like, we have this technology. What do we do with it? It's like we don't know what
yeah,
to do with it really. So people are artists especially are kind of going like, all right, what how especially people that just got into the art business from NFTs especially have
yeah,
no background in the art in the fine art world. They're like they don't know, they're because on one hand people are like, scarcity is what makes things valuable. On the other hand, other people are like, no, that doesn't really matter anymore. It's a different world. There's so many people out there to there's you can never make enough stuff sell to everybody is kind of my attitude.
Yeah, and
It's a different world.
when you're starting out, to worry about scarcity is like kind of a, it's like putting it's definitely putting the cart in front of the horse, right?
Right, right.
Like my point of view, there's a couple ways to go about it. Like you want to have a broad collector base, I think, because the more
Hmm.
people you have collecting your artwork, the less influence any one collector has on the value of your
Right.
collection
Yeah.
or anything. So you have a broad fan base. Because what happens when you get into scarcity, it's usually when you get into like higher priced markets, like limited editions, which I wouldn't suggest starting out until you have a big fan base for your work, right?
Yeah.
So when you get into that, and especially at high prices, there's fewer and fewer participants in your market. So if you're selling, JPEGs or paintings for $15,000-$20,000 a piece, there's a lot less of those people around than there are for $10 and $20 versions, right?
Right, right.
And what happens is when there's very few people, there's less demand, and they start getting really fickle about, like, if it doesn't sell right away, they're like, well, we'll just see what until the next one comes on. They start getting like picky and choosy.
Yeah, right.
Um, so if you don't cater to those people, then you don't have to worry about them, hanging on the whims and fickleness of a few people.
Right. Yeah.
So you want to have like 1,000 people that, they're one
Definitely.
one person's individual whims aren't as uh, doesn't have quite the impact on you that a small group of people might.
Yeah, yeah. This is the approach I've taken my whole career really was is especially being on social media and building up as big a following as possible while maintaining my own artistic integrity, finding those people that really like what I do and
Yeah,
and and selling wide ranges of this is something I learned from you way back in the day when I was first starting my print career. It's like having a wide range of price points so that you could bring everybody in instead of just having, just
yeah,
only really expensive things. I had a guy just um I've said it before. I've had, big collectors just said like stop. Like I had a guy who recently was just like, I'm getting out of collecting, selling everything. I'm not collecting anymore. And he was a big collector. And it's
yeah.
like, but
And
it's like I've got a whole infrastructure of people that are buying prints and all books and
yeah, you have
everything.
a broad foundation
Right.
of collector base.
And that's
I mean,
key.
you don't have to have 10,000 collectors. If you have, you know, 100 collectors or
Oh,
500 collectors,
I've
like,
got I've got 350 around 350 people. It kind of goes up and down. People drop off, new people come on my Patreon. And that's
yeah,
like
that's your core group right there.
yeah, yeah. Those are and it's like it was, I initially started it as like, oh, I got to get off this hamster wheel. If I could bring in money that I could count on every month, that would be hugely helpful. And that's what it did. And it's great. But as a side thing, and it's like it was kind of funny because it didn't really occur to me until it started happening. It's like I realized that um, these are the core main people. It's like if I'm going to worry about anybody, I'm going to worry about those 350 people on my Patreon. These people are sustaining me every month, and that's not a huge amount of people. 350 people. It's like
Yeah.
it's 350 people that really are into what I do, though. You know what I mean?
Compared to like the 120,000 followers you have on Instagram, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Where it's like, I'm getting way
But the,
more from the 350 people on Patreon than I am from the 120,000 people, casual people on Instagram.
well, that's the problem with every venue and every platform is they eventually change and become harder and harder to operate in. Like
Yeah, everybody's
everywhere from
complaining about Instagram right now. Every
yeah,
artist I know. Yeah,
and the same thing with Facebook. It was
and you
MySpace, and then
and
and then
YouTube and
even the venues I sold in real life, they change and they usually they deteriorate by
mhm,
change. Like because that's the nature of the world is entropy and things. Unless you're putting lots more energy into something, they don't just get better, right?
right.
They fall apart and degrade over time. So that's what's going like what's going on in the NFT space. Like I don't talk in terms of bear and bull market. I phrase it as the tourists have gone home. It's like September's rolled around and summer's over, and everybody went back to school, and you're still out on the sidewalk and wondering what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
and the solution I found at that time was to go to where people are and sell there. And at the time, I started going to college campuses and selling to students.
Oh, then that's when you really started making money, right? That's when you
Well,
started.
that's when I was able. Well, I was able to do it year round, and then it didn't matter what time of the year it was. There was no bear and bull market. There was always sort of cycles, but I wasn't like, killing it for a few months and then just like tumbleweeds and starving to death for the rest of the year. You got to
Right.
figure out how to where to go with your work year round.
Right.
The internet's there year round, but the reason there's a bear market in crypto is because it's a bunch of Charles Schwab motherfuckers trying to come in and make money. You know,
Right.
so
Right.
they think they're Charles Schwab, and they're not. They're like they're just a lot of them are young people who found something new, and they got lucky. They bought into product. They made a lot of money, and they're not business people. They don't know what they're doing. Not all of them. Some of them
Yeah.
really know what they're doing, but there's a lot of people that just they looked into it. There's a lot of artists that I think that have been artists all their life, but they've never had the opportunity to make money with it. They've
Hmm.
had real jobs or whatever, and all of a sudden they found themselves in a situation where they were making more money off of their art than they ever did at their job, and so they quit their job, which is what I did. I quit Macy's when I to go
Yeah.
sell my art in the street. Like, at the time, I was like, I'm making $300 in the street in 2 days versus $200 in 5 days at Macy's. Like, and obviously I went there, and then the tourists went home, and then I was stuck.
Yeah. Right. Gabe's
And
one of Gabe's rules of life: no plan B. Don't have a plan. Don't have a backup plan.
it, it can backfire. But yeah, I figured out how to scrape by, and I figured out how to go to other places. You have to go where the people are,
Hmm.
and I think that's what a lot of people are figuring out in the Web3 space, is that they're wanting to take this to they're wanting to get the mainstream adoption, but I think they're making they're doing it in an odd way. They're trying to bring everybody into Web3, but it's like the Web3 culture is so bizarre to the most people that it's just a turnoff.
Right.
And, and what I think needs to be done more is bring this technology to where people are already at. You got to meet them where they are,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was getting at with, like, getting people who are collectors to download a wallet and just give them a free NFT.
Right.
Like, meet them where they're at. I don't have to explain anything to them. I don't have to, like, you don't have to get a Coinbase wallet and an exchange and then connect a bank account and get all this different, then have to get a different wallet to transfer funds. Like, there's too many steps. It's too complicated. There's a bunch of different language and words you have to learn that don't make any sense.
Right.
I mean, when people say, "Hey, go to my Discord, get on my whitelist so you can get a mint pass," I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I still don't even know what they're talking about. And I'm like, I'm barely like hip enough to understand like some of this stuff that they're doing, and it's taken me 8 months to fix. Like, plus all the time we spent last year just learning about crypto, right?
Right.
They're not meeting people in their understanding. Like, they need to
Right.
speak a language that people understand. And I think there's a lot of push in the space for doing that to help make it accessible. They're also really trying to figure out how to make this run in the background, so it can be as simple as like using your Apple Pay at a gas station to buy a Diet Coke or something. It's got to be that simple,
Right.
but it has to be trustworthy. Like, it took a long time to build a system that people would trust with their credit cards on their phone, right?
Right.
So, but you don't have to know how that works, how it transfers money from your account to another place. You don't have to understand all that.
Right.
You don't have to understand the sort of nuts and bolts and gears that are moving. And right now, that's what everybody in the space right now is, kind of a techie. You have to have some sort of technical understanding and knowledge. I think the people that are doing well there's a couple types of people that are doing really well in the space. People that come from a marketing background, people that come from some sort of corporate structure. They understand, business structures and incorporating and especially if they're that plus marketing, and people who understand branding and all that kind of stuff. People who are techie, people who
Mm-hmm.
understand development, people understand computer coding and all that kind of thing. People who work in artists who work digitally, those people are translating easily into this more easily into the space than most artists. Like there's not a lot of traditional physical artists in the space. Those are they're there, but most of the artists I think are digital.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of focus, I think, from people in the space on traditional artists because they're so focused on what everything's digital. They don't, I don't think, see the value in what traditional artists have to bring to the table. That's just the sense I'm getting so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, uh, um, I don't know, but for me, my perspective on it has been from the beginning. It's like, it's an opportunity for me to get back into my digital art. And from it's because like I've always said, in how it is, how it is as an artist, is like you always got to make money, or at least I have to always make money, and it's just the way things are right now, which I hope to
Yeah.
change soon. But so I can't just play around with digital stuff because it's fun. It's like it's gotta somehow make some money somehow. Like if I make a print of the image or whatever. But so for me, it's like the primary excitement is oh, I have a reason to do digital art again. And it's cool because it's sort of sparked my interest in it. I used it inspired me to do digital mock-ups of these paintings I'm working on right now, which
Yeah.
was really like just changed my whole technique, my painting technique, which is cool. Um, but so from that respect, I kind of fit in with them to some degree, with
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like there's a place for that aspect of my work, but at the same time, it's like um I mean, I see digital getting preferential treatment, and it's like, and I'm also like, yeah, they've suffered for so long not having any way to monetize their work. I think it's
Yeah.
really cool. But on the other hand, it's like, I think generally speaking, the traditional people are creating the best work. Not
Well, it
not absolutely true, but a lot of the traditional artists are like doing
I don't know.
really amazing shit.
Yeah, I don't know that they're traditional artists are doing better work because there's really fantastic digital art. But
Yeah,
what
that's true. That's true.
the digital artists aren't don't have as much knowledge or skill base in it is the business of selling their art as fine art or being a fine artist and making the art for yourself that you then sell. I think that's where people like us come in with that sort of knowledge base that we have to offer and share to people. But I feel like a lot of times there's so much sort of like um, discounting or wanting to look at traditional art as being irrelevant, like a relic, and not um, relevant to the current situation.
Hmm.
I think they're missing a lot of opportunity because like when I'm talking to these artists, like there's some artists at the show, and I'm talking to them about like ideas about what to do next, because they've quit their job and now there's no sales and they're like, what do I do? Like like, and some of the things I tell them, it's like they've never even occurred to them to do these things, like going out into the public and making your art a spectacle in public somehow, and then giving away your QR codes and just like you have to get in front of people. You have to go, forget, and then you have the digital. You bring the NFT stuff into the mix after you get people excited about your artwork, but you have to focus on the art,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. That's, I
And
mean,
getting it in front of people in a real way. Like it's so easy to access anything you want to through your phone that people don't value it as much.
right.
When they see it in person, just it's the same thing of going to this event. It's way more impactful than just trying to meet people on Twitter. Like the bandwidth of in person interactions and physical real world experiences is going to dwarf any sort of like digital VR thing. Like I love VR because I can go on the space station and look at Earth, and it's
Hmm.
mind blowing. But if I was able to go there in reality, it would still be way more than any VR could do, right?
Right.
And go back to your point, like for me, I got a VR headset like a year or so ago, and it was like, holy cow! I got to learn digital art. I want to bring this experience of my art to people. And through the pandemic, I started getting into 3D modeling to make references for paintings and different things. And so I've been, learning all kinds of digital art stuff and incorporating it into my normal process. And it streamlines a lot of things where I'm stuck on a painting, I can't figure out what to do. Where normally I would stare at it for hours or days until a solution occurred to me. Now I can take a photo of it with an iPad and go into Procreate and actually draw on top of the painting and change things around and
Yeah.
figure out what I need to fix. And like, oh, and then I have a plan. Then I go to my painting. So
Right.
it makes things a lot more efficient in the work, in producing your artwork. But so I'm not so concerned with how to make money on digital art right yet. I'm using the tool of digital art to help me produce my physical art. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
my thinking is after I do that, I have these digital artifacts that now I can then sell via an NFT marketplace if I want to at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's more, it seems like a more holistic approach.
Yeah.
It's it's about the art. That's it's like
Well,
this
for
is the
people like us, it is. For
yeah.
these projects, it's not about the art. The art is like a logo or a brand cover. It's like the art is like secondary. I mean, people like the art, but they're not thinking about art
Yeah.
like we're
Yeah.
thinking. They're thinking about art like the how cool the graphics are in a game
Yeah.
or that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so they're more
Yeah.
concerned with
Yeah.
like the underlying game they're playing, which a lot of the projects are using a game system, like creating games, things for people to get involved with and make it fun to interact with, and that's where a lot of this community building is going on, is in creating something that's entertaining and fun to be a part of with like-minded people. You want people on the same page as you, and then
Yeah.
you get to
Yeah.
get to meet them through this project. And
Yeah.
then
I
you
get
get to wear the t-shirts and you get to go out and you're like, hey, we all got the same stickers.
right.
And
It's that
it's
community thing.
you have to remember a lot of these guys that were buying into the Board APR clubs, they didn't have any money. They were like living in in a small apartment, kind of broke, working shit jobs, but they were into tech and they were into crypto, and all of a sudden this thing came out and it blew up, and they're all riding this wave together. So they're like a family. They
Right.
they
Right.
they don't know each other, everybody, and then they got celebrities coming in and buying into their projects. So they're connecting and being related to in a way they haven't experienced, and with an opportunity in a new sort of technology. And so they're super excited. And the people that have been in it for a long time, they aren't quite as phased by the downturn in crypto right now. Like they've been through it before.
Yeah.
Crypto's
Exactly.
crypto's bottomed out a couple of times, and so
Right.
it's they're just like, well, what do we do? How do we you know get our shit together and figure out what the next thing is? And if we can't make as much money on it, what can we do with it? And I think that's where a lot of people are in the space.
Right. Yeah. I have to backtrack and I feel like as soon as I said that traditional artists are doing some of the best work, I was start thinking about all these amazing digital artists. It's like I because it's like I think about like that. I forget this dude's name. This painter that does those Minotaur head guys. You
I
seen
don't
this
know.
guy? Like fucking Renaissance master, Flemish master, whatever level painting. And it's just I want to say, let me see if I can look him up. That's like, I can't find him. Sorry about that, whoever you are.
Well, there's some digital artists I've seen on Twitter that are doing like some really, they're
Oh yeah,
making paintings that look
that
like physical paintings,
that's
and
well.
and
This,
with the
this is my
brushwork.
this is my point. Why I have to take that back. Um, is I've seen people like this dude, the Minotaur head guy, and some really amazing physical painters that are just painting things and digitizing them, but there's also these some of the digital stuff is so it's like some of the best art I've ever seen. It's amazing, and some of it is very like tech oriented. Like I
Yeah.
saw, these weird, like just abstract grids that look like realistic, but they're like rippling. They look like metal, but they're like little squares and they're rippling. It's like really,
Yeah.
really, really cool abstract art in a way. But I guess what I should change that to what I said to is that there, I mean, it has to be said that most of the art in the space is not good. It really is. Most of it is not good. It's not like
Well,
most of it's good. Wait, let me finish. It's like most of it's not good. And there's some on the kind of on the edges, there's some amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. But there's a lot of art that's just, man, it's bad. It's bad,
yeah.
objectively bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's because, normally I think people, you start an art career, you learn you learn your fundamentals, you build your career. It takes years and years and years. You get good, then you start showing your work. And this was just like an opportunity for people to just jump right in and start making money. And I think that's not good for them as artists, as far as for a long-term career to be showing work that's
Yeah. Well, a lot of that will wash out. The people that can't hang in the long term just won't be able to. And so you see a lot of what I see, and when you're talking about bad art, it's not that it's bad, it's that it's um there people are
undeveloped.
rushing. Yeah, they're rushing to put things out for sale because it's like like they will do it as quickly as possible, so they get a new project out because they want to make that money, and
Right.
I understand that.
I know, yeah. It's like I'm sympathetic to it too, because it's like I get it. They're hustling, they're doing the hustle. It's
There's
cool
a
that they're
there's a
able to do artwork for their hustle.
also the tools of digital art allow you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do unless you had the technical ability to do it,
Right.
like the drawing and painting. Like you can control Z, you can copy paste and work in different layers, and you
Symmetry.
know yeah. So I've been talking to a couple of digital artists about, like, my suggestion is to make a no control Z one layer piece of artwork.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're
Yeah.
making on the iPad, then you sell the iPad with it,
Oh, that's a cool
because
idea.
then you're selling the actual working file,
What a great
because
idea.
everything else you're putting out there is just a copy of your
I
digital
mean,
file.
that's an innovative idea right there. That's
Yeah,
the
and
kind of stuff I'm really
then you can
interested
get a
in
wall
hearing.
mount for your house and just display that iPad with the working file on it, with
Right.
the name of the artist etched into the back, or a QR code that refers back to the digital NFT on the blockchain. You
Yeah,
have the
that's so
working
cool.
file, because
Mhm.
like when we sell our oil paintings, we're selling the working file. We can't edit the painting after it's out of our hands anymore.
Right.
And in fact, anybody who has the painting could go and paint on top of it and change it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So we don't. That would be the equivalent to
Yeah.
physical art sales and digital art sales.
And
You
that's
sell
the
your hard drive with it. Like, you have an external hard drive that your working file is on, and when you finish the project, you sell them that hard drive,
right. Yeah.
so you don't have any
Yeah,
backup copies.
and if prices go back up to what they were, you could do that. For some pieces,
No, I
it's
mean,
like
if you did that, it would be a reason for somebody to spend a lot of money on your artwork,
right.
because they would be getting an iPad with it.
As an added bonus.
Yeah, but the point being is there's lots of ways to go about doing new things. And I think, from a business point of view, as an artist, what you want to do is make it as hard as possible for people to imitate you,
Yeah, for sure.
or to copy you, or do what you're doing. Like I could go back to my boardwalk days. Like, one example is there were artists that were selling these giant blueprints of their artwork. They go to an architecture firm and have prints made from blueprint machines.
Hmm.
And they would be beautiful, like purpley blue colored, monotone, black, like purple and white color, that are awesome. They're giant. They'd sell them for 10, $20 a piece, and they just couldn't sell them fast enough, right?
Hmm.
And there was only one or two of them doing it. And I figured out how to do it, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I was selling color prints, and I decided I would just stick with the color prints. But what happened is everybody figured out how to make those, and then everybody on the boardwalk was selling them, and then they weren't unique and special, and you could get it from anybody. Everybody had the
Yeah.
same. They
Yeah.
had their artwork, but it was all in the same format. Well, I ended up getting a giant color printer and was able to make giant color prints, which nobody could do unless they had a lithograph made, which cost them $5,000, and they had to store stacks of prints.
Right.
And so nobody could copy that because they couldn't. They didn't reinvest their money back into their technology, into the printer, and I had the printer, which so I was
Right.
the only one that was able to do it. And then I moved on to canvas prints, and I was the only one on the boardwalk that had that too. Like, and so it not only was the, if you can't make, if your art is something that's easy to, somewhat easy to imitate or to rip off stylistically, then make something else that you're doing just more difficult for someone to follow along. They
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
like, they have to put something into it, some work or some money or something.
yeah.
They have to do the hard work to be like you.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And that's, that's a creative it's a problem in need of a creative solution. And as artists, that's what we do. We come up with creative solutions for artistic problems. It's like we can apply that to, how we present the artwork, or what we need to
Yeah.
do to make the artwork harder to copy or more unique, or
Well, I think that's why artists in general are going to find themselves more and more empowered in the NFT space.
mhm,
Um, the one thing I think they're getting sidetracked with is being just an artist solving other people's visual problems and working for projects or working for other people. They're doing the same thing that they've done traditionally as digital artists.
right,
It's sort of a hard mentality to break out of. But once you realize that the real value of what you do is owning your own work and owning the rights to your work,
right,
like I learned, like I was trying to get in with like animation studios and doing illustration work, and I realized like they were always the trying to pay you as little as possible and have as much ownership of what you're doing as can be. Like they want to own it all in perpetuity through the universe and every
yeah,
new developed technology ever invented.
fuck that,
So if I own the artwork, then 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 I can do that with my own artwork. I can then make money off the rights to my work by not giving that away or letting somebody else have the rights to it. So that's one thing that I think. The other thing is like, as artists, I think that generally what artists do is solve problems. They solve them visually or creatively, but that comes to any other problem. You use your creativity to solve issues that are going on in your life. And I think um, as artists become more aware of themselves in the space, they're going to quit selling NFTs so much and use them and be more selective about how they sell them, not worry about, you know, what the investors are worried about. Like we're not concerned about nervous investors.
right,
Like you want people to invest in what you're doing, but what they're doing is they're buying into your journey and you're bringing them along with you. So when you succeed, they succeed with you, and they got these tokens. You're rewarding them with things. It could be access to, like be giving them merchandise and stickers. Like we all give back to the people who are collecting from us one way or another.
mhm,
Like Kickstarter. It's like raising Kickstarter projects where people who come in are really about what you're doing will buy into your project and they get a better deal, and they get, the people who got your book, for example, got a way more of a book than somebody who waited till the book was published.
right, right,
So they got a way better deal than if they would have
yeah,
waited until it was published. So
that's for
they get
damn sure.
early access, and plus, the people who are going to your Patreon have access to you and your knowledge and can talk to you, and you can't have 5,000 people emailing you all the time. So you have to have some way of sort of setting a standard of accessibility so that you're talking to the people who really care about what you're doing.
Right,
And right now, I mean, creating a monetary system is a way of creating that, I guess. But you don't have to you don't have to make that some sort of an expensive hurdle. Like for a
yeah,
dollar a month, you can follow what you're doing.
yeah, a dollar. It's like there
Yeah.
just needs to be some kind of barrier to
So
keep out
you could
people that
use
aren't.
this to do what Patreon is doing, but without the Patreon taking any cut from what you're doing, because you would be able to do it all on your own through a token.
Right, yeah,
And then people could trade those tokens. You could sell those tokens and have a certain amount of them. And then if somebody wanted to buy into your program, somebody wanted to like get, sell it, they could, buy and sell those tokens, not to make money, but just to like transfer access to, transfer uh, whatever it is that you're offering.
right. Yeah, there's so many. I mean, it's That's one thing that they always say is we're still early, and I do think it's true. It's like the technology's way early. I wanted to ask you too about making selling your work for crypto, like online.
Yeah.
You're thinking about somehow.
If somebody wants to pay with crypto, I'll accept it because you don't have to like if so it doesn't matter if crypto's down right now. I would just sell it in whatever the value of the dollar is to the crypto.
Right,
Like so say it's Ethereum and I have a painting for $4,000 and crypto's at let's say Ethereum's at $1,000, it's like a 1,500 or anyway. So it's 4 ETH, right? Well,
right,
I cash that out, I have my $4,000.
right, yeah,
Or I can keep it and maybe it goes up or goes down. I don't know. But the risk in selling in crypto isn't too much of a deal to me. It's just right now it's a cumbersome because you have to cash it out
it,
and whatever transfer fees. But that's
right,
not
right,
that
yeah,
that wouldn't prohibit. That's not enough to prohibit me.
yeah. No, I want to do it, man. I want to do it. I want
But right now, people would rather have the token than the art. It's like they would rather.
to. Yeah, true.
It's the same thing with money. People focus on the money rather than what the money represents and what it does. You know, like you. There's Alan Watts talks about this a lot. Actually, he's like
Yeah,
you go to the restaurant
eat the menu.
and you eat the menu instead of the food,
All right.
or you go to the grocery store and you buy a bunch of groceries and then you're worried because you don't have any of the money left, but you have a cart full of groceries, which is what you needed. It's like
Right, right,
the money is a measure of economic potential. It's not the objective. I mean, money sitting in a bank it doesn't do is like does nobody good. It's
right,
just sitting there doing nothing. The purpose of money is to facilitate transactions.
right,
It's the same thing with the blockchain. It's there to record and authenticate transactions, and then to automate complicated transactions through smart contracts. That's the purpose of it. It isn't to
yeah. Well,
make the value of the token
yeah,
more expensive. I mean, if what they're doing is trying to maintain their wealth instead of trying to build or facilitate something. Like, I mean, I get having the need to have some money to, keep your bills paid, but after a certain point, I mean, what do you need hordes of money for?
yeah.
I mean, I mean, maybe people are like, well, I got to pass it down to my kids. I'm like, well, I don't have any kids, but fuck your kids. Let them work for themselves. Let them figure it out.
Nobody gave us
Yeah.
anything.
Well, everybody's dealt a hand, right? I didn't start out with zero. I came out to California with a car and some clothes and some artwork and a supportive family back home that they were rooting for me. So I didn't come out here destitute,
Yeah,
but I didn't come out here with somebody buying me a house either, or help getting me an apartment and paying my bills. Like my family didn't pay my bills for me. I don't know if they even would. They might have if I asked them, but I wouldn't. It's like I'm the kind of person that doesn't like to owe anybody money. I don't like
hmm,
to owe. I don't want people. Not that I don't want to owe people. I don't like having things held above my head.
yeah,
Like this sort of like, well, we paid for this, we paid for that. What are you doing with it? Like
hmm,
they couldn't say shit about me, struggling on the boardwalk because they didn't pay for my education. They didn't pay for they're not paying my rent.
right.
So they don't get no say. They can say, well, I wish you were doing something different, but that's all they had to say. So I owned what you have to own what you do.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have to, but I prefer to.
yeah,
I don't
definitely.
like being at the mercy of, or at, like I don't like being obligated to other people for things.
Right. Yeah, it's I've had it happen to me before. It's terrible. Um, Someone holding something over your head like that.
Yeah.
It's not good. Um, well, I don't know. Where do you see this going? Where do you see this all going, Gabe? Oh, I wanted to say this one thing before we do that because we got to wrap it up
Yeah.
because I know you got work to do and stuff. But yeah, the NFT thing was kind of a fluke. It was like it wasn't like, okay, we have this technology and now we're going to give the first use case for it. I think the NFT people started just doing it, and then it took off, and it was like the first use case, as far as I know, for blockchain or NFTs. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of an unexpected weird thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's like there's all these other things it can be used for. It hasn't been tried yet, like groceries being, or consumer items
Well,
being tracked while they're traveling in trucks and stuff like
well,
that. And
it's going to be used to control and own your data. So like Facebook doesn't own it. You will have control over how your identity is used and sold, and
that's a
they won't
cool
be able to
idea. Yeah.
they won't be able to sell it because you will own all that information. It's going to put that back in people's hands. That's kind of how I see the broader use of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you look at the way generally like things happen, like say it's in like a shitty neighborhood somewhere. First, the artists discover it, start making art studios, and start making art, and take over, making it a cool place. Then restaurants move in,
Yeah.
and then rich people who want to be artists move in and kick out the artists because they can pay more rent.
Yeah.
And then people see that. Then developers come in and tear down those buildings and build new apartments and luxury condos.
Then it gets really
And
expensive, and
yeah, and
then
so
people
the
can't
artists are
afford
the
to.
first ones in, and they're the first ones squeezed out too. So the view I have for artists in the NFT space is I don't see it coming back exactly the same way that it happened to begin with. I think there will always be art there, but I think it's going to get
It was
competitive.
crazy. Just so people know, it was crazy. Like people
Yeah,
selling stuff for $100,000, millions of dollars. So, even when you say it, you don't think it's going to come back the way it was. I still think, because I agree, it's like maybe it won't come back as like it was, but I
no,
still
but
think that there's a ton of money for artists to be made
yeah,
there.
I don't mean that the money's not going to come back. I mean the way that it works is going to be different.
Mm,
I think that the static 2D images are probably not going to be as valuable as like three-dimensional OBJ files that you can put in a VR or AR headset, and
right,
then watch a sculpture of something rotating on your coffee table,
right.
or centerpiece in the middle of your room, or a giant 10-story artifact in AR in your front lawn, like
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that. So like really interesting interactive stuff is where I think it's going to come back as.
yeah.
It's got to have experience. People got to be able to experience it. And right now, NFTs, there's not really a good experience you can have with it, other than you get to go to events and meet people who also have NFTs, which is fun, but that's not practical everyday experience, right?
Right,
Like a piece of artwork or like a painting or a sculpture might have in your place. People buy artwork because they want it to be in their environment, and they want to see it.
right.
And right now it's not really offering that kind of an experience. And so there's a lot of people developing games, like video games and stuff like that around it. There's people are developing clothing lines, and you're going to see clothes with big QR codes on it. It's like it's probably going to get really garish for a while. It's going to get kind of gaudy and just ugly, like weird stuff. But eventually I think it'll just be really in the background and operate on a lot of different things.
I should get a serious collector on here to interview, get their take on things.
Like a traditional or
No,
digital,
like an
or
NFT collector, because it's such a
yeah.
weird. I've had Chris Velasco. I've had collectors on here before.
You should reach out to the YVR trader.
Yeah,
He just put up
or
a new digital gallery that looks really pretty slick, and it's got a bunch of
yeah,
different artists.
I had a bunch of
He's
your
been in the
stuff in
space
it.
for a while, and he collects a wide range of artists and
Comfy Devil,
projects. And
Comfy Devil, maybe. He's the
yeah,
guy.
anybody you might know.
Yeah, I'll have to see if they're interested. They probably won't want to show their faces though.
They can put on their Board Ape Yacht Club Halloween mask. You can digitally in post just superimpose their Board Ape Yacht Club over them.
Yeah. Yeah, I could do it in post.
I'm surprised they're not doing that. They're not making digital avatars of those projects so that they can superimpose them in live chats or video
I'm sure
chats.
somebody's doing it. I'm sure it's being done someplace.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, friend of the show, Gabe
I
Leonard.
hope we didn't go too deep into the weeds with it. Like, 'cause I realize there's a lot of complicated language that's involved with it. And
I
we're
just
kind of
think,
more hip to it, maybe. But
yeah, but that's how people learn, though. And I think, as much hopefully I have heard no pushback on the NFT stuff, because I'm like very from the get go. I've been very like, I'm always like, I don't know if I should talk about this. I'd say it on the podcast. I don't want people to hate me. I don't know if they're interested, but I've gotten only good feedback about it, and I think it's
lately,
relevant.
yeah,
It's whether you're into it or not, it's a technology that is going to affect the art world, whether a traditional artist or digital artist or whatever. It's a new technology. Big galleries, big mainstream galleries like
yeah.
Christie's and stuff. They have NFTs.
Well,
It's part of the
broadly, what it's
landscape,
doing,
part of
yeah,
the
broadly, what
artistic
it's doing is
landscape.
turning distribution models on their head for like music and videos and art. It's turning those distribution. It's empowering creators to get more credit and more value out of what they actually create,
Right.
rather than being squeezed at the bottom and getting nothing, and creating all the value, and what they're creating is the product, which is what is making all the money, and they're getting paid the least in a lot of situations. It's going to be able to turn that
Yeah.
around quite a bit. It's changing the power dynamics. I
Yeah.
mean,
Which is
I can
great.
see that in my business, what I'm doing already. Like, nobody's doing NFTs in the gallery scenes that I'm working with, but I can see that the overall power dynamics are shifting, and artists are not even lining up to get in galleries, which means galleries don't have a bunch of people to go to as much as they used to.
Right.
Although with a lot of digital art coming into the scene, there's going to be a whole new tranche of artists that they could help facilitate and distribute their artwork.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
don't know.
distribution models are going to change. The ownership of your information, like, that's why I say own your artwork and own your data. That's what it's going to facilitate quite a bit.
Yeah.
In my view.
Yeah. I mean, this is the lesson that all the musicians of the old early rock and roll musicians learned, is like, hold on to your publishing. That's where the money is,
Yeah. Yeah. I figured I dawned on me early on that I don't want to do a bunch of work for everybody else, and then when I get old, I don't own anything that I created. Like,
Right.
I own whatever money I managed to hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But owning the rights to your work, and the way that our copyright system works in the U.S. and a lot of part of the world, that's where you can make the money, is being able to control the rights and how you disseminate your work out to the public.
Absolutely. That's where it's at, man. Well,
Right. I'm gonna put my gum back in my mouth then.
okay, sorry. I didn't mean, I really was just joking. You could have chewed. You're not a loud chewer. Yeah, I couldn't even hear that. All right. Well, thanks, Gabe. It was
All
great to
right.
talk to you, as always.
Yep.
Friend of the show, comes on periodically. That means that we're the Dark Art Society podcast is a big deal now, because we have a friend of the show, a regular, who comes on from time to time. You'll have
I'm
to
like
do
I'm like Ed McMahon that shows up on the night show.
yeah, you'll have to do like guest hosting when I'm out of town. Except I'm never out of town.
You want to lose subscribers?
All right. Well, thanks. Don't hang
All
up and
right.
say goodbye, audience.
Goodbye, audience.